Hey, welcome everybody to Cycle Jerks Podcast. Today it's Dave and myself just hanging out, and we've got a returning guest, the newly
Lightspeed
retired
Wizard.
Chris Padavana,
Not
formerly
you
of
again.
Eden
Not
Bicycles.
you again.
Yes. And
Yeah.
Chris told me that today actually marks the 1 year mark. On this day a year ago, he shut it down.
Yeah.
Handed the keys over to the evil empire,
No
and
shit.
the
Really?
Bay Area
20.
bike scene has been paying the price ever since.
Kind of, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, darn it.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, let's take a trip down that memory lane. So was it
All right.
like, holy shit, what have I done? Or like, oh my God, Aaron, let's go get drunk? Or was it it happened today, then tomorrow you felt bad or better? What was it? What was it like?
Yeah. It kind of resembled like my retail career, which was just like, and you've been there before, Dave. So it's, head down, just full throttle into the headwind. So it was, I kind of regret maybe not taking more time to like stop and enjoy more of it as it was kind of transpiring and coming to an end. Um, so it was just kind of like, we're done. And now what do I do?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's how it felt like to me too. He's done. Now what do I do?
I
Oh
Damn it.
boy.
know.
Yeah.
Right.
Left this big hole in Castro Valley,
Yeah.
for sure. But
You
how
know,
is
I,
it? How is it a year later?
if it's good, dude. I mean, really, and I've said this before to some other people. It's like I just don't have any regrets, and not necessarily regrets that we sold the store, but regrets in what we did.
Yeah.
I feel good about what we did, and how much more could we have done? Who knows? But just time for something else in our lives.
Yeah. I'm just going to say this. I mean, I didn't nearly, I last like one quarter of the amount of time you lasted, right? You went out on top, I went out on the bottom, but I have very few regrets. I'm poor, but it was such overall, I feel good about a lot of things that we accomplished.
Yeah,
So I think it's when it's yours, I can relate to what you're feeling.
and that's the same thing. Like I look at what you did too. I know you left earlier than you wanted to, but you left such a mark on the industry and to the cycling community. Not the business side of the industry, but the cycling community,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You
Thank you. Yeah.
inspired so many people and done so many things, and same thing how I feel like I feel like I've hopefully inspired people and made a difference in people's lives, and you know kind of some of the stuff I'm doing today. I'm trying to help other retailers, kind of navigate some pitfalls because you just don't know. So there's no book.
Right. Well, and I
It's
think
it's
I'm sorry to
crazy
cut
what
you off, Dave. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I want to get this point out before it vaporizes. I think the thing with both of you is that, you gave it everything. And so I think when you talk about regret, I think it's when you look back and think like, oh man, if I just would have done this, or if I would have given more of myself, or, I wasn't, whatever the situation is. I think that's when you leave and you have regrets. But
Right.
like you guys you just poured your heart and soul into the business, and in one case, you got out at the absolute best possible time. And Dave, and unfortunately for you, you just got out at a bad time. I feel like if you would have hung on for another 6 months, holy shit, maybe you guys both would be sitting here in retirement lane talking about,
Yeah.
how you pulled it off.
Well,
Yeah.
But
as my dad used to say, if I had balls, said the queen, I'd be king, right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
It's
I mean, again, that's part of it. But I will say this, it's still such an emotional part of me. Yesterday, when we had the monthly group ride,
Mhm.
and Matthias showed up. I didn't know.
Oh,
I knew his wife was in town, but I didn't know he was in town. And so he was just there with his kid, and I went to introduce him, and I literally got choked up.
yeah,
Here we are 4 months past this, and a guy that was such an integral part of the business, and the business meant so much to me that I'm like, no, I got to stop here because I'll just start bawling. So,
yeah,
Wow, that's cool.
you know,
That's good. I'm glad you
so
stopped by and you guys got to connect. That's great.
yeah.
yeah, no doubt. Well,
All right,
okay.
off this for a second, Mike. Did you really, did you go all Nick on us and match your hat to your shirt?
No, actually, the shirt is blue and red, and the
Oh,
hat's gray. But for
it
whatever
looks
reason,
purple
in
and
this crappy
purple. It
light,
looks purple and purple.
I got
Okay.
I got like a whole purple. That would be something, a purple Cadex hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's gray. It's like a whatever. It's just
Yeah,
a gray.
you've always been a pretty in style guy, I must admit, You-
Yeah, I'm the guy that old guys make fun of. Like, look at this old guy still dressing like a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's he doing? What's he doing with his long pants rolled up?
Yeah. Ah, guilty. Whatever. You gotta
Yeah,
do what you gotta do. Trying to hang on, man, as long as I can. That
right.
youth, right?
Yeah,
On Saturday at AJ's, so that's where Chris is at AJ's bike shop right now helping out. And AJ had his soft opening on Saturday, and both Dave and I rode. We did a little group ride. It's actually a pretty good turnout. I think probably 35-ish people,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but there was a guy that I rode with. He was in a pair of overalls on a e mountain bike, and this guy Lauren, 69 years old.
Oh,
You would never know this guy is 69 years old if you he plays music locally. He's like a skateboard guy that grew up and then he plays the guitar and sings. He's got a bunch of he's a cool guy.
yeah.
But
I did meet him here at the
oh, you
store a
did?
while ago. Yeah, super, super great, supportive person. And
Totally.
yeah, definitely someone you want to have in your friend group for sure.
Yeah. Can you believe he's 69?
That blew me away. Totally blew me
Yeah.
away. But
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
he's good peep. And that's what I noticed just being at AJ shop, the couple times I've been here is just like it reminds me of all that immense community support. I mean, it's not just another retail store, right? There's all these people who are here just to congratulate them and
Yep.
wish them the best, make a purchase. It's
Right.
yeah, it's
yeah.
Yeah.
And I know we're big and we're bad and we're worldwide. So, we try to keep the topics that apply to everybody. But a shout out to AJ for in some pretty challenging, difficult times for the industry to have the balls to open a shop. And he's built something over time. Obviously, he speaks that his customers speak very highly of his repair stuff. But to fulfill a dream in a difficult time like this for the industry, way to go, AJ. Way to,
yeah,
I mean, it takes guts. It takes guts to do it in the best of times. So, shout out to AJ.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
definitely. He's good people, and he's doing a great job, and he's working hard, and you can tell he's got his heart and soul in it.
Yeah, for
Did
sure.
you
He's going
did
full
you
gas.
see? He's got one foot he's preparing to end up sleeping there. He's got his drum kit in the background.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring my guitar
Okay.
down here next
I
Uh-huh.
time.
know.
He's
Like
got
AJ,
a
are
he's
you
got a
going?
really nice bike shower set up, so in a pinch he could probably shower in that and
That's what he said. He
yeah.
absolutely said that. He's like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I may have to.
That's right.
So,
But that's what it takes, baby.
Sometimes, yep,
All right.
7 days a week.
it was funny. Again, we could go on forever, but you remember in my shop, I had a loft over the service area,
Right.
Mhm.
and Matthias and I used to argue about who would like living up there more, right? Or seriously, I'm like, well, if it has cable here, and I got a TV, and there's a gym across the way, I could shower. I could move in here.
Yeah.
You know,
This could work. This could
I
work.
Uh-huh.
got there's a burrito place down the street, and my refrigerator's filled with beer. What else could I want?
Well, you're joking, but I've actually visited many retailers that actually do that.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, in San Francisco, I had a couple retailers that lived on the premise and they would just go to the gym and go shower up but they were just at the shop all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I don't know if I could. I mean, you want to get away, obviously, right? You want to have some sort of balance in your life, not
Yeah.
just be, ball and chain to the building. Although You know, it does feel that way, I'm sure, a lot of times.
Sometimes,
It,
yeah.
yeah, it's not healthy, but sometimes it's what it demands, right? You just, you're just there.
Yeah. All right, Dave, who's sponsoring us this week? What do you got?
Yeah, yeah. Just a quick shout out to our friend Phil Guyman. It's a long way away, but I know it's a popular, his Phil Cookies is a big sponsor for us. You can, first of all, you got to taste the cookies, outrageous. The last thing I ever wanted to do was eat a snickerdoodle, and my wife and I both fell in love with them. So he's got great flavors, really easy to make. But he also has the Phil's Cookie Fondo, which happens in October,
Mhm.
26th to the 27th. And there's a lot of organizations that benefit from that, including No Kid Hungry. So I'm bringing it up now. It's October 26th and 27th, but it's Phil Guyman. It's for a great cause. Down in Malibu, there's no question it's going to sell out. So a shout out to Phil for all the great work that he does, and
Yeah.
make sure you sign up early.
Yeah, he's raised so much money for No Kids Hungry. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal that
Wow.
what he's done. And speaking of fondos, I just heard that Nielsen and Shayna and Jack and Jeanette, the Powlesses, are going to have a fondo up in Auburn in November, the first ever Powless family fondo, and they get attached to just some charity. I don't know it right off the top of my head, but so that'll be something to look forward to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
I just saw that on Instagram myself. That's cool.
Yeah.
kind of exciting.
Good
So
work.
this is kind of weird today. I'm making my computer's making noises, so I'm trying to but I'm actually broadcasting today today from inside my house, which I never do. I'm always in the garage.
Okay.
So
What bring
uh
about the change?
we'll see. I don't know. Because I got the two dogs and the house to myself. I never have the house to myself, so I
Ah,
thought, you know what, I'll just do it here and we'll see what happens. So if the dogs go nuts, it's just what it is. All right, speaking of going nuts, let's talk about this past weekend and the bike racing that happened.
oh.
Holy
Oh,
smokes.
I thought you were about me going nuts because everyone posted on Instagram before I got a chance to watch it. So,
Yeah, you got to be faster at watching it. You can't be complaining about it 2 days later.
yeah. Okay.
Dude,
But
what?
he's superhuman. I don't know what to say. I haven't watched The Woman's yet. That's going to be tomorrow's project.
Uh-huh.
But I heard that was a battle royal too. But I don't know. What do you do? He's just superhuman.
Yeah.
Right? Is that, I mean,
I mean, I can't, I was trying to think of like who in the rainbow has won Flanders and Roubaix. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. Chris, do you have anybody?
No, I mean, I'm thinking you'd have to go back. That's like an 80s era, when you'd have a rider who would win the Giro, the Tour, and the Worlds, the Triple
Right.
Crown. I don't think they really do that, or, I've not heard of anyone doing that in a long time.
Yeah.
Back then, you had guys who were winning the Tour, but they were winning classics too, so
Yeah. Yeah. Vanderpool's he's a
he's a
freak of
beast.
nature.
Yeah,
It's
beast.
unreal. Do you see him on the cobbles, just how, I mean, it looks smooth almost. Like the way
yeah.
he goes over the stuff, it's just like, good Lord, and just,
It's got to be like this magical feeling where it's like, you're in the pain cave, but you've got more, and you're just like, you probably just feel like you're gliding over those cobbles,
yeah.
the feeling that those guys must experience at that point of the race.
Yeah. And then
Amazing.
you see like these random crashes where dudes are just going in a straight line on the cobbles, and then front tire just gets weird and they bail, and then a whole bunch of them go down. It's like just to have that level of dominance, I mean, he really kind of stays out of trouble in all these events. I wonder if it's like the cross, because he's so dominant on cross, and then I mean, that's a rougher terrain. Obviously, the bike's different, but you're just not someone who's just riding paved roads all the time. You're
Right.
mixing it up at the highest level.
It's a
There,
skill set, man. The skill
Yeah.
set those guys had. I remember doing a criterium a long time ago, and do you remember Daryl Price?
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
Daryl Price was kind of more of a mountain bike guy,
Yep.
and he had a blowout in a criterium in a corner, and dude planted his foot and just saved it. And it was like that's the skill that
Right.
a regular roadie,
Right.
just
It's
like
over.
on the pavement sliding.
Yep.
But he pulled it off.
I don't know if I
Yeah.
should make too big of a deal of it, but if one of the things that I noticed, if you go back to the Tour of Flanders,
Yeah.
there was one of the climbs that they were going up,
I know exactly what you're
and
talking about.
he was off the trail. He was in a rut, right? And he's going, you can see his tire spinning, and he's working his way up off the cobbles in this little rut. And I'm not just saying off on the dirt, it was a rut. And he got to where he wanted to do, and he hopped out of that, got onto the cobbles, and kept going. So that's, I think, maybe if you watched it again, I'd go, oh, that's not a big fucking deal. But when I watched it, I said, not very many people could have pulled themselves out of that and he was using it to advance. So I think my point is there's something about the crossover bike skills that has got to make it a difference.
Yeah.
So
Agree.
Yeah, that's not the part I thought you were going to talk about, because there was this other section where it was so steep and slippery, and like he literally like two-wheel drifted while he's climbing a couple times, like almost fishtailed, and just kept it moving. And it was like a section where I think only 3 or 4 riders made it through that whole section.
Pat and Mads Patterson and then one other guy, the only ones that cleaned it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So yeah, we could
But
just
do you
revel
think
in it, that we're
do you
alive
think
watching this stuff, huh?
you think it's any coincidence that he went there at about the same distance he went at Flanders? Do you just think he knows that he's got that much left in the tank that he could? You think that was a risk, or he's just like, no, I know I've got this? Because it was both of them were like what 50, 60K out.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? This seems to be the year of the big breakaway. Like
Right.
Fagasha did it early on, 60 miles out, I think. I mean, yeah, there's just one after another of these. And I think that's cool about the racing, because you can't get too comfortable. You just don't know. Um, I don't know. What is your take on it, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel in large part those guys, athletes at that level, know the effort that it's going to take with that kind of mileage or those kilometers left, and are
Mhm.
willing to put it out there. Of course, there's that risk, but
Yeah.
I'm,
I
uh,
feel like with Vanderpool too, with the cobbles and everything, I just feel like it's a mindset. Like he's just I think, like we said, the cross, he's just got the right makeup, all the things in his past to really dominate in that type of event. Um, and I mean, shit, what was a couple years ago? He was in yellow at the tour after what, I don't know, a half dozen stages or more.
right.
Uh, that's the big question. Can he make that leap? I don't know. What do you guys think? He's kind of big. Is my only
Big dude,
thing. Like
big dude.
to go with the climbers in some of these, the Giro, or I mean, he hasn't really done it to this point in his career, but
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think, yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I just noticed that when they had the close-up shots, like he's just such so big in stature that I don't know, and so you go and you lose weight, do you drop power? I don't know. Like, why fuck with a formula? The guy's winning, right?
yeah,
I mean
Yeah.
yeah, you'd have to give up so much to train to be a tour contender.
right,
That's just a different animal. I mean, even in my heyday, like trying to train to climb better, you gave up some sprinting power. It's
for
just you
sure.
can't. Your body makeup isn't going to. I don't believe will allow to do both, or
Right.
maybe you don't have the makeup to do either.
Yeah, but he's talked about, is he going to do cross again next year? I think he said he was done, or maybe one more
I
year.
thought it was someone else that was bailing. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh well.
Hey,
All
well,
right. So
Yeah.
here,
let's go. Let's do a Cycle Jerks podcast direct from that Flanders to Paris-Roubaix. Let's just be there.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
all
just
right.
did my taxes. I expensed the European trip, so we'll
Yeah.
see how that goes. The IRS will probably be here next week.
Yeah. Oh
All your
yeah,
ducks
Chris,
lined up.
Mike's gone away for a little while. Could you join on for the next couple of weeks? And let's bake him a cake with a
Yeah.
file in it.
Yeah, joining you from
9
Fulton
months.
County.
All
Yeah,
right, so here's another side to that. And
okay,
stop me if I'm getting overly analytical because I'm not usually this way, but it's tax season and Sue's working. So I'm not watching the highlights of this race. I'm watching the entire thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
All right.
God
And
bless you.
so two things. We could say that these guys are pros and that they should be doing this, but there were so many instances where guys like either flatted or had a mechanical, and you just said their day is done. And the next thing
Yep.
you know, they're back in the lead group. And it's like, where do these guys find the engine to get back on? And the mental thing, right? The mental side of it. Like I think with Laporte, it happened to Deckencow, it
Yep.
happened to Pedersen. And I thought, oh man, I was kind of rooting for John Deckencow, but think this is great. Come on, dude. And then something happens. And the poor bastard. Next thing you know, he's back in the front group.
Yeah, he finished 11th.
Did he? Yeah. See,
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus.
Right.
So that was one. Where do they find that? And the other thing there, again, it's only because I'm generally not this. I think Pedersen would have done better if, well, first of all, I think way early he had one guy with him, and this guy was pushing the pace so much, and then suddenly he's got no teammate, right? He's by himself. And then he had two incidents where he had to catch back on, right?
Yeah.
And then he had two other instances where I'm just saying he's on the front and he's hammering, and I'm going, why is he doing this?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I wonder if he would have, if hadn't had to chase back on, if he maybe more just sat in and let them other do the work. You don't think it'd have been any closer? I don't know.
It's like Flanders was kind of the same.
Mm,
There was a point, and then
yeah,
Vanderpool just said later, and she
yeah.
just took off. Yeah.
It's been fun.
So yeah, right, right. They were talking. Dave and I were talking about. That was on Velo News, I think it was. They were talking about these Vanderpool rules because he had just got beat at where was it? Where did he get beat? He got beat just at the
Oh,
end.
get well
Yes,
right?
and so uh there was this article that like was equating it to the Jordan rules of the basketball, when
Ah,
the Pistons used to, beat up on Jordan. And so this guy's philosophy was just get Vanderpool, make him work hard and get him into a sprint, and then you can get him. It's like, yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
Let's see a track record of this working.
right.
This is
yeah,
one isolated event.
yeah,
The guy, he won every cyclocross race of the year. And then,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, the guy's just unstoppable. That's the thing that's so cool because we've got Pagasha and Vinegar, right? On the world tour stay and throw in Sepp Kuss. I mean, geez,
Right.
he's
Well, we
amazing.
have to throw him in now since we're not sure Vinegar would be back.
Yeah. Yeah. And oh, that's right. Yeah, that's true. And you see Roglic went down again? Man, that Roglic, he's the bad luck king.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy, I feel for him, He posted a picture of him like naked with all these bandages all over him.
Oh,
Yeah, it looked terrible. Poor guy.
that
Did
is.
But
you see the one guy that had the two bad crashes in Roubaix?
oh, do you see him like he flipped right over the bars? He hit that thing square
Well,
on
well,
that barrier.
Phil Liggett at one point had said, that's the problem when you're way back there. You don't see a lot of this road furniture coming. And then about a half hour later, you see everyone go like this, and he just didn't even tap the brakes.
He
Just
could
like,
not have hit it any
oh,
square.
oh, oh.
Just classic over the bar, It was awesome.
No, oh
Yeah,
God.
poor guy. That was the second crash on the day.
Yeah, yeah. No
Yeah,
more clothes to rip off.
yeah. I swear those are my two. I mean, I think a lot of people feel the same way, but Flanders and Roubaix are two of my absolute favorites just because it's so wild. But
Yeah.
if Vanderpool is going to run roughshod over everybody, maybe it's not going to be that wild anymore. But uh,
Another guy, so somebody will come along,
somebody will.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, look what happened. We were wondering, oh my, who's going to come and dethrone, Ineos and all the badass riders on there. And suddenly you got, Vingegaard and Roglic and all these guys. And suddenly where'd they come from, right? And all of a
right.
sudden now they're the guys. So everybody's days up at some point.
Who's riding Envy bikes?
Is someone riding Envy on the world tour?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
yeah.
They had a big crash, and I didn't know. I didn't know. And then, but they had this big crash, and they were pulling the bikes apart. And I thought it was a couple Colnagos, but then they got in a little closer because the one guy, it was a UAE guy. So I'm just thinking, oh, he's on a Colnago, it's all black, you know. But then they got in closer, and it was an Envy bike with Envy wheels.
Well,
Wow.
what
And I
brought
was like,
that up?
oh,
Why are
geez.
you asking?
I don't know. I wasn't aware that they had a team
Yeah, I
riding their
know I
stuff.
did.
Dave's got the Google going, it looks like.
Here I go. Google,
Yeah.
Google. Total Energies.
Total Energies. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big step for them. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I'm sure
Yeah.
that wasn't inexpensive at all.
I think it's 7 figures to get
Yeah.
in.
I
Yeah.
can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. All right. So,
So you got some good representation, Mike. Let's give Giant and Cadex and Liv. I'm, I'm
yeah.
seeing a lot of your logos go by and a lot of Liv. They've always got a lot of camera time.
Yeah. Yeah. No
So
doubt.
and then yeah, those propels just stand out
Well,
on the
on the live side, we have two World Tour teams actually. So we have the live team, and then we have the Jayco Alula team. So we got double representation on the women's side, whereas on the
Wow.
men's, it's Jayco Alula. So yeah,
Good for the ladies. That's
pretty
great.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. We were talking about just how it's so cool to finally see the women getting the airtime and getting the respect that they deserve, you know. And
Yeah, because it was kind of there in the 80s and then it just kind of disappeared, you know? Like
yeah,
I remember the women's Tour de France and I've ridden with what's her name? Inga Benedict.
hmm
I think she won back in 86 or so.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. There was like this, and I know like they didn't do Rebay for the longest time for women. Uh, UCI actually said that they thought it was too tough.
Oh,
How
gee,
lame is that?
I know.
ah,
Women,
Yeah. You haven't met my wife.
I don't know, man. Yeah. Women have childbirth. I was like, I don't
That's
know. I
right.
think we can handle that.
They're
yeah.
tougher than any of us, that's for sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But yeah, and think about some of the great finishes that we've seen on the women's side. You know, it does seem like it's um I don't there's more events where it's tightly contested at the finish, I feel like on the women's side. Whereas on the men's this year especially, it seems like we're just seeing these outrageous, you know, displays of power and just dropping everybody. Um yeah. Did you happen to see the finish of Milan San Remo, Chris?
No, I didn't. Not this year.
Oh, okay.
No.
Because our guy, speaking of Jayco Alula, Michael Matthews, he got second, but he had this weird thing
Ooh,
happen.
I don't
So,
know. How do you feel about that?
well, I don't think Chris knows.
Go
So,
ahead.
so his glasses. So just as they come out of it's right at the finish. Everybody's going, you know, 1,000+ watts right now,
Right.
and all of a sudden his glasses fall off of his head, and then they bounce off his leg. Just, I mean, it was happening in a split second. But you know, he lost by like less than a tire.
Damn.
And I swear, I mean, you know, yeah, I will never know. But
Right.
to me, like, you know, if you're going that hard and then something, just that split second, like, whoa, oh,
Yeah, right.
you know,
That could be it. Yeah.
that could be it. I think
Oh,
Jasper got it. Didn't Jasper? Yeah,
Yeah, but I was
Jasper won it. Michael got second, and Pagasta was third.
Oh, I was going to ask you
And that
about
was
what
a
you think about
fantastic finish. Yeah.
what you think about him getting relegated.
Yeah, you know, he's not that kind of rider, but
No.
I mean, I could see where they're coming from, you know. What was your
Did you
take
see
on it?
that one, Chris?
No, I didn't see it. No.
That was
Yeah,
Flanders, right?
he was in a big sprint and he went he didn't hold his line. He swung way right for it, and he ended up the guy behind him said claims he had to tap his brakes, and that took him out of the sprint. It was very obvious it wasn't an intentional thing.
Yeah.
It seemed to me,
Yeah.
but think I think you could make the case for it. I think you could make the case, or you could probably even make the case not for it, right? It's like, I don't know, but it's a tough call. But he did
So
go
dangerous.
wide.
So dangerous. Not, I mean, especially, as fast as those guys are going at the end of a
Oh
race
man.
like that, and the fatigue and the they're just focus. It's yeah, changing your line like that.
Yeah.
That's a tough call.
Well, you see
And
it
I will
all the
say that
time, you know. You do
that
see
was a
it
good
quite
thing that
often.
it was only one guy. If there had been more people in the sprint, it would have been it would have been a dog's breakfast for sure.
Yeah, it cost
But
him a podium though. He was going to get
yeah,
third. So
yeah.
he's coming off San Remo, and then he was going to get third at Flanders. I mean, he's riding really well.
Right.
So it's exciting to see. For
Yeah, and
sure.
that's maybe a contract, for another year. You get a good result, and
Yeah.
it, yeah,
Yeah, Degenkolb announced that, he loves Roubaix, and so he announced that this year was not going to be his last year. He's on for another year of Roubaix. So that's
but what
good.
do you?
It's not always up to him though.
No,
Someone
I think he made an
like,
announcement like it's done. Like
Ah,
he's got he
he's
must
got a
have a deal
contract.
in place or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what do you think of that? Milan San Remo, I think that has to be one of the best bike race finishes, ever. Going
Hmm.
up and down the Poggio and that whole drag race into town. I mean, I've been to see the finish of Milan San Remo,
Oh, you
and
have.
Oh,
yeah,
woo.
and God, man, that is just such that race has been that's the one for me, like in terms of finishes,
Hmm.
watching it, and it's just so intense, the whole because it's the Poggio and there's a climb before that I forget, but yeah,
Right.
it's just a dogfight drag race, all the way to the end.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I had to we didn't go check it out while we were there. We weren't in that area, so to speak. So, but yeah, no, it's always exciting for sure. But there's a lot. I mean, they keep changing the tour around, and I feel like there's some great finishes they've had in the tour. There that one year they did the double Alp where Wout just smoked everybody that day. I don't know. There's been yeah, Milan San Remo is awesome though.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
yeah, it's because it's such a narrow road, it's such a crazy descent on both of those climbs, and then that drag race into town is just it's always
Right.
thrilling to watch, always thrilling to watch. I'm sad I missed it this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's available on YouTube.
Oh, you think?
Yeah. Go
Go
figure.
figure.
Thank God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I swear.
I am a great home fixer with YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, aren't we all?
So hey, I want to before I forget. I want to rewind the clock a little bit because you mentioned, Chris, you got me thinking about it when you said, women's racing used to be much bigger back in the day, right?
Right.
So first of all, thank you for the introduction to Michael Seeley.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that was awesome.
Wow.
I listened to
Wow.
that podcast 2 times.
Did you really?
Yeah. I had to show my wife, Mom, you gotta listen to this.
He's incredible.
I,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was, I made, I was, I think I told Mike, but, I made two sound bites that I thought our audience that might intrigue them. And then I made two or three other sound bites for people I know that are having anxiety and depression issues, and I'm firing them off to like, you got to go listen to this guy, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, So thank you. It was fascinating. I think we're going on his podcast too, so it was great. Just a
Oh,
Yeah.
super good guy.
yeah.
But
He's
I
I mean, I've
got
known Mike for a long time, and obviously we raced together on the same team as well, and
Yeah.
just an outstanding human. And I've always been excited to see his podcasts, and he was always inspirational just as a regular dude back then, and
Yeah.
to see what he's doing now, it's great, great.
Yeah.
what got me thinking about it was that Mike, I finally went back and I listened to his one with Michael King.
Oh man. Yeah.
And so that in itself is an amazing story, but the kind of thing that went throughout it was Michael Seeley kept referring to the golden age of cycling in the US and could
Right.
it ever come back? And
Hmm.
Chris, maybe I don't know when you were racing or certainly before, but like, you know, all the races that they mentioned, and you sit there and you go, where did this all go? And
Yeah.
he was like, this Michael King was like, I was making a good living doing this thing, you
Yeah.
know? And it's like, where did it go? Like the Course Classic, the Tour de Pont, the big race in wherever it was, Minnesota that they did this 2 weeks. It's
Yeah.
like, man,
Yeah. Super Week. That was always a big one.
yeah, I don't, of course,
Yeah.
we all sit and watch it on TV. We subscribe to it. You give me a tour of California, where'd it go?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It just, I mean, I think Mike even may have softly mentioned it, it could have been the Lance Armstrong drama.
Right.
That could have, but it may have already been happening at that point. Like I know where we live in Nevada City, the Nevada City Classic
Yeah.
hasn't gone on because they're not able to grab the talent. So you can't justify closing off the streets, if you can't get the talent to get the crowds,
Right.
Yeah.
tough. It's tough, And I just was watching a video. The Course Classic actually started a stage in Nevada City, and it went from Nevada City into Downeyville, up into the Sierras, and then finished at Squaw Valley. It's like,
Oh
man,
man.
geez, that would have
What a
worked,
course.
right?
Yeah.
Oh,
That sounds awesome.
yeah,
Well,
but yeah, all those, yeah, it's interesting that those races, those were all really inspirational at the time. So, I feel privileged to have grown up in a time where those races were around, and got to see the Course Classic in San Francisco. It was fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a similar thing in the industry too, where the automakers were getting all involved in bikes. And so Subaru was with Fisher, I was with GT, we had Acura,
Yeah.
Cannondale was attached to Volvo. And there was like this, I think it was like an exploration into the world of bikes by these automakers, like can can we really drive some additional revenue here? And I think after a little while, they decided, well, maybe not.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You
Well, I
know,
think that's another podcast, but
yeah, yeah. But I think I would say it was probably around the same era, right?
it's kind of
Actually, I think the road thing was before that, though.
yeah, the road stuff. I mean, it had like some surges for sure, but I think it definitely kind of went away.
Hmm.
In the early '90s, maybe. Started to kind of fade. But I don't know. There was some resemblance. There was what was that? There was the big race they used to have in San Francisco, San Francisco
Oh,
Grand Prix.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Grand
Yeah,
Prix.
yeah,
Yep,
that was awesome. Yeah,
yep,
People lined the streets for that. And well, then
yeah,
again, back then, Armstrong was actually racing that, right? So like
yeah.
the Postal Service team was there, but I don't know. It's just that's my point. It was when, and I guess we come from the community, so maybe, did any of my neighbors say, "Can I go with you?" No.
Right.
But when you went to any one of these things, like wherever you went along the route, people were standing there. So I just don't know why it fizzled.
maybe the mountain biking too. If you think back in that time, the road racing and then the mountain bike kind of gets introduced, was it like late 80s?
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, what is a kind of small interest in cycling gets split on some level, and I feel like that's kind of the thing now. It's just like you look every weekend, I mean, there's mountain biking, there's gravel, there's road, it's like these events some events struggle more than others. like we had the Velopromo Robert on, and he was talking about how it's just hard to get enough people to show up. And meanwhile, the gravel events are, they sell out. A lot of the mountain bike events sell out.
Right.
And so I think a lot of people just divvy up these are racers, but then also people's attention span too. Maybe that has something to do with it.
Like for me personally, and even as an industry person, I felt like with a lot of the doping that had been going on, it
Mm-hmm.
definitely diluted my enthusiasm for kind of watching professional sports, because, and maybe, foolish of me, but it's like, of course, there's doping in all sports at those kind of levels. You're talking about, lots of dollars, that are
Mm-hmm.
involved. Yeah, it was just kind of disheartening to have that happen, and it definitely kind of lost some luster for it.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
one of the last guys. I was one of the last guys to admit that Lance was doping. I think I knew it,
Totally.
but I was like, no, 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 couldn't be, please. All right, maybe he is, but not. Don't let Hencappy say yes. I was just like, oh God.
Yeah.
I was holding on to the dream, but
Yeah.
whatever. But you're
Well,
right. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, how many football players are on performance enhancing drugs, and it's still,
Right.
still the most watched thing on TV. So
Yeah,
right.
there
yeah,
was a thing too. I mean, I think cyclists are, it's a challenge because you got to wear this little outfit that's not the most macho thing. And then it was easy for people to be dismissive when the drug thing was happening. I just remember people saying, "Oh yeah, a bunch of dope." They would just be so dismissive of the whole sport.
Right.
It's like these guys race for 21 freaking days,
Right.
and here you are just like dismissing the whole thing like it doesn't matter because and meanwhile, like to your point, Dave, the football, baseball, I mean, pro sports is just it's what it is,
Yeah.
until they get
No.
better at detecting it, there's always going to be athletes trying to find an edge.
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean,
Sure.
you look at Mark McGuire of the A's. It was like water off a duck's back. It was like you know
Yeah.
comes out, but is like the guy's still a hero. Whatever. I don't know. Just
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think Lance's thing was more complicated than Mark McGuire or Barry Bonds' thing because it was tied to cancer recovery. And, he was like, he got put in this position, like this this pedestal, that you can only live up there for so long and then you're going to get knocked down. It doesn't matter who you are. And unfortunately, he had a lot of reasons, I guess, to get knocked down. But yeah, I think America bought in to this superhuman feat that he
right.
had he had beat cancer and lived strong. We're all wearing our yellow bracelets, and we were all along for the ride. And then all of a sudden, the wheels fall off, and I think everybody felt, betrayed.
Yeah. I agree with that too. I think we all kind of felt like that. It was just like, it was kind of like a deflate, a quick
Yeah,
deflate.
yeah,
And
Oh,
I can only hope that, because it would be a nail in the coffin if turns out one of these young studs they're kicking ass now, that's it. Like, even my wife passed comment yesterday, oh, he's on something. I'm like, how he's not, but because I showed her loved the footage. I said, watch this. Like she even really gave a shit, right? That I made her watch it. But she's like, oh, he's on something. I'm like, no, 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 no. But you watch the way some of
maybe.
these guys perform in the tour, and you just like pray to God that Vindegar's not on something. You just pray, just no, please don't let it be. I want
Don't
to believe.
does it? Is there? Don't you get a little mad when people say that? Like it bugs me when people say that.
Yeah,
that people are doping.
Yeah. Like there's this like again, it gets back to being dismissive of the whole thing, It's just like, oh yeah, he's probably hopped up on EPO or something, but
Right. Right.
and I say this only because I don't think she listens to the podcast. If I do,
I think
if
you're
she does,
safe.
I'm probably screwed.
Yeah, great.
Like,
Now we're never going to get MVDP on the podcast, Dave.
yeah, that couch behind me will be my new bed for a while. So
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's a complicated, murky, weird thing. Cycling was never huge, but certainly they were building something in the 80s. And
yeah.
then, yeah, it just kind of splintered and
yeah.
it hasn't really recovered. The the Legion crew did that $100,000 crit thing in Sacramento, and so that's getting back. But Michael King was talking about $100,000 prize money back in the 80s,
Yeah.
which
True.
is what's that worth now? Geez, big
Yeah,
money by
yeah,
comparison.
right. Because didn't Lance Armstrong, he won that it was like something like 3 races, won $1 million. Like it was like Core States was part of the US Pro Championships. That was part of it, part of
Hmm.
that series. And yeah, there's some big money. Or like what Seeley was saying, right? $25,000 in the 80s. Like what is
I
that worth
know,
now, right?
right,
Exactly.
right. Good money
And then
for
the
sure.
bigger thing that comes to, and I do, before I have to jump, I want to talk to you guys because you got two industry experts. I want to talk about the, kind of the state of the union, the state of the industry. Mike, it was encouraging to hear you thought things were picking up.
Yeah,
But to that point, you wonder, like, if it's not big in the States, where does the US talent come from, right? Because there's a I mean, there's some big guys showing up and doing big things, Jorgensen, there was a guy on Ineos that was in Paris-Roubaix that was
hmm,
a US dude, and they say his power numbers are unbelievable. But where's that pool ever going to come from if these type of races don't exist, right? Like where do those bodies come from? Which is
Wow.
well, I
kind
think
of a
they're gonna be inspired by the success of others. And you look at what Sepp Kuss is doing, and to your
yeah,
point, these other riders, Nielsen Powis,
yeah.
so there is some, they're not a ton of them, but they're these amazing unicorns in the World Tour. And
Yeah.
all it takes is someone that you can identify with, maybe from your state or something, that gets you fired up, and yeah.
What was that
Well,
guy, the kid's name? He was 21 or something, and he's a note, and Ineos picked him up,
right.
and he was in there for a while. Then something, I don't know what happened, but he got popped. But 21
Hmm.
years old and on Ineos, and I guess what does Phil Liggett know? But they said that they would not have signed him if they didn't see something in his numbers that was astronomical. So
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the scientific part of it, right? Because like God, to be 21 and competing at that level,
Yeah,
amazing.
there was an
it
18-year-old in
is.
there. There was an 18-year-old in the race yesterday.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
18.
they're just getting younger and younger. I mean, I feel like it's the evolution of the science where, you know, it was always a mystery. Like when you were racing, Chris, I mean, you could read about stuff, but it was still like the technology was still evolving, the science was still evolving, and there's all kinds of different conflicting stories about what works and what doesn't work,
Right.
and there still is that to some degree, but there's a lot more absolutes. And then also just the fact that these kids they can watch their heroes, every weekend, and see what they're doing. That inspires, that'll inspire you to try to do more.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. And having the tools available to you and knowing how to use them. I can recall in 1990, I got a heart rate monitor for the first
Mhm.
time. Never had one, right? It's a Polar.
Yeah.
And I'd go out and do this loop and I'd come through Tassajara before there were a lot of cars driving it. And so I went out to go do my regular interval loop. And so I go with the effort I'm used to, and then I'm looking, I'm like, whoa, 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 I'm way too high, So I learned to kind of back it into that level or that zone. And like 4 weeks later, I'm like, holy shit, I am way faster than I was.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just having some tools better than no tools
Yeah.
just can make a difference. And I can only imagine, the right talent, finding the right people to help kind of guide them along, you know.
Well, and you think like it used to be believed that for the like a world tour rider, it was like 28 to 32 was kind of the sweet spot for and I think
Their
it's
prime for their prime. Yeah,
yeah, and it's probably had to do with just figuring it all out, just getting all your your chemistry right, getting all your fueling and your training and all the things. It probably took you years and years and years to figure it all out. And then, maybe 28, 29, 30, best case scenario, you have done it and
Yeah.
you're optimized. But now, like what Pagasha was, what, I mean, how old is he? He's a young kid. Was he 25? I
Is he?
don't
I
know.
don't think he's that old.
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't even think he's that old. So,
yeah.
yeah, so yeah, it's cool seeing these younger riders, and because I mean, when you're younger, the motor's definitely better, you know? Yeah. There's no denying that.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, can you have it all
Yeah.
put together at a young age? And I think more and more we're seeing that that's possible now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you know
Right
what,
tools.
and clearly the desire and the energy has to be, or the desire has to be there. Like when you looked at, like we talked to the Luna brothers, right?
Uh-huh.
And how many other kids, 16 and 13 that have the desire to go out and suffer like that, right? So there's definitely some switch in the brain of those kids that like that kind of endurance and that kind of thing. And it just that there's a reason why there's not a lot of kids in their racing in their age category, right? So it's
Yeah.
really cool and inspiring to see. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
I don't know if you, I'm sidetracking a little bit, but I'm on a ride the other day, and a guy goes, "Hey, do you know anyone that would be interested in a TT bike? I've got this bike laying around in my garage, and I just want to get it to somebody, right?"
oh wow.
And immediately, Monarch Racing and the Luna Brothers came to mind.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked you for Joel's email.
Okay.
Um,
Yep.
I reached out to him, and they said yes, they're interested. It was on his kid's birthday.
Oh
And
man.
so yeah, so they just picked up the bike yesterday, so you got a free TT bike. So our podcast is doing good. It's you and
Yes.
me and dear Abby are making little hearts happy. So
And how about the guy, I mean, that's got a TT bike and he just wants to give it away. That's
yeah,
that's
well,
Great.
yeah,
that's N+6.
right. Yeah. Yeah, it was funny when several years ago after the Paradise fires, I was collecting bikes, and bringing them to Paradise. So I had my buddy had a trailer and everything. And Dave at his shop, he had some donations. And the donations were, what was it? A Merlin titanium
Oh.
mountain bike. Yeah, it was ridiculous. There was a TT bike, a Merlin titanium bike, and I mean I think collectively it was probably $15,000 worth of three bikes.
Yeah.
Right.
And they get thrown in my trailer with like the bikes I picked up in Dublin, which were let's
Like,
just
don't
call
scratch
them
him, don't scratch
basics.
him.
Yeah, basics. And but it was really cool to kind of see where all that stuff ended up. And so the titanium bike ended up with a young kid who he had saved all his parents were cyclists in Chico, and he had saved all his money and he had just bought a bike and it got burned. And so he's the one that ended up with that titanium bike. And I got to see him like, I don't know, a few months later, after he got the bike, and he just had this big shit-eating grin on his face. He's like, yeah, things worked out.
Yeah.
Well, there were
And
some
I,
significant others out there going, I think it's a good time to donate that bike.
Yeah.
Get it out of
yeah,
here.
Get
that
it
is for
out of
sure.
here. Yep.
That is
Yeah.
for sure.
But yeah, Danville kind of beats to a different drum, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the world of Danville, I'm the have within the have-nots. So, but I can attest to the fact that there's like, what?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, too
So,
funny.
All
hey
right.
guys,
Well,
you
yeah.
guys talk about I have to bolt.
Yeah.
And
Thank
I'm going to
God. Let's
admit,
get you out of here. Chris and I
yeah, I
just want
know.
to, yeah.
I'm going to admit, I put in a good ride on Saturday, and I woke up Sunday and I'm like, I'm not really feeling it. And I had this group ride going. And all of a sudden, the morning progressed, and I'm going, no, I'm going. I went for the big ride, massive turnout, maybe 20 some people in our group. We roll out, I make it around the corner. I realize my DI2 is not shifting. First time it ever failed me in 8 years.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't get to ride. So there's a group leaving at 5:05. So I got to go get on that because I was just sulking all day yesterday, sulking.
Well, get out of here. Go ride your bike.
That's why I got to see. This is why I got to sit lay on the couch and have Mike Seeley in,
It's okay. It's okay.
Uh-huh.
yes, it'll be okay, Dave. There's more to life than bikes. It's only one
Uh-huh.
ride. It's only one ride, but you don't understand. So,
Right. If
all
anybody
right, guys.
understands, it's probably him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, all right, get out of here.
All
Go.
right. Love you guys. Great
All
chatting
right.
with you, Chris.
Good
Good to
seeing you,
Likewise.
bud.
good to have. We'll
All
see you
right,
soon.
Dave.
Okay.
Yep.
Good to
Bye.
connect.
Enjoy. All right. So now that he's out of here, why don't we talk about what you're doing, right? In retirement. You're starting to work with retailers and yeah, tell us a little bit about
I've it's a feel good for sure. Like just kind of working with some retailers. I've done a little bit of work with them. It's just this is it's a hard to navigate. There's just so many pitfalls, and it's very eye-opening just to kind of be helping AJ and just kind of see things that maybe he's not aware of or things that you don't consider, especially as a single operation or one person, right? And
yeah.
then it's like, well, you've got this beautiful new shop, you've got all this great product, you've got all this support behind you from vendors to customers, but you got to start laying a foundation that's going to involve more people on your staff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I know that's working for you singly, but when you're not here, you've got to make sure to have a system set up in place so that potential staff members can operate without you and feel empowered and
Yeah.
you know and take
Yeah.
control. Because I feel a lot of times in a situation like this, everyone wants to see AJ, right? Or like when it was my store, it's like, where's Chris at? I want to see Chris. And it's just like, I'm working
Right.
on the business, man. I got stuff to do.
Yeah. Right.
I got these great staff members here that they got you.
Yeah. It is always challenging trying to handle. I remember as the manager of Cal Bicycles, I used to get people all the time. There was nobody named Cal at the bike shop, but I would always get people who say, "Oh, are you Cal?"
Yep. It depends. Are you
Yeah.
mad? Are you happy? Or are you mad?
Yeah. But yeah, there's something about that's a lot that's lost in most of retail now is the actual owner client interface. So many of these, it's just more and more big box
Right.
operations all over the place, and the mom and pop, they're still out there, but it's just not as prevalent as it used to be. And so I think that that's a big part of the appeal for a lot of people, where they want to just support
Yeah.
local guy, or gal in the community.
Yep.
And
But
yeah, so
it's a hard road. I mean, you think about the competition from online, Amazon, and right, we're all guilty, right? I
yeah,
mean, it's convenient, it's great, and but like myself or Dave or an AJ, and a number of other great retailers that we know, it's like there's no playbook. You don't know, you don't necessarily know business at that level that your competition, big box stores or online stores there, that they know more about running business, and they potentially have less pitfalls where you're just, kind of constantly picking up, picking yourself back up.
right.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about business. I just knew I loved bikes. I loved working on bikes. When I first started working in bike shops, I didn't want to talk to people. I just wanted to work on bikes,
Yeah,
but
that's most mechanics, right?
right.
Just
Yeah.
leave me
Right.
alone. Let me work on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm back. But,
Yeah.
got to a point where I enjoy that aspect of it. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
important.
and it's weird how like to your point about Amazon, Amazon is just it's so ingrained in our culture. And I remember at your shop one time I was there for a sale and it sold this woman a bike, and I'd taken her over to the helmet wall and got a helmet that fit her and everything. And then she didn't buy it, and then she proceeded not to buy anything other than the bicycle. So she bought the bicycle from Eden. And then at one point, like I was showing her water bottle cages and, just trying to say, hey, you're going to maybe go ride this thing this weekend. You're going to need water. And she didn't have anyway, she didn't have any of the stuff. And she was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm not buying anything here. I'm just going to buy it all on Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just like, ah, you know,
Yeah,
it's,
it gets lost on people, and I don't know, it's hard to fault somebody, I guess, thinking about it, I mean, you work hard for your money and you
yeah,
want to spend it right. I get that too, right? But then you also understand it's like you're supporting a person who is putting kids through school, and and I'm donating to local charities, and it's like
yeah,
you don't see those other pieces. And um,
right.
I don't know, it's a tough. I still try whenever possible to buy locally, you know,
Yeah.
just to have that interaction, and that community vibe.
I'm the same, but I live in a household with that's definitely not the majority view.
Yeah, right,
And now I have my parents living in the ADU in the back, and we get packages. I mean, multiple packages every day.
right. Yeah.
It's insane.
I mean, I
But
totally get it though, right? I mean, it's like,
yeah,
it's there in a day or two. It's right at your door. It was a good price,
right.
you don't like it, you just return it,
Plus, sometimes you get bored and you just get on your phone and like, oh yeah, I need that. Oh yeah. Oh, let me get
right.
this other thing. It's hard
But
to
to the
beat the
it's
convenience.
like, I mean, you work all day, then are you supposed to go out and drive around and potentially not get good customer service, spend your time and gas trying to find something and to get a no, or they
Right.
don't have it, it's like I could have just spent 10 minutes on Amazon and
Got
had
it
it to
all.
right. So I mean, I get that part of it,
The thing I tried to share with this woman, uh, God bless her, was that Amazon has bicycle stuff, yes, but when you're at a retailer, all of the items that are in the store are vetted by the ownership
right,
and everyone who works here. They are not going to sell just any random water bottle cage, any random helmet.
right.
It's more than just an SKU
Yeah,
to the people at the shop. And so, when you're there's a level of protection buying it from a retailer because the retailer is not going to sell you a piece of junk, whereas Amazon happy to sell you that piece of junk, and they'll even let you return it for free.
right,
They don't care. They don't even pretend that that's part of the deal. It's
right.
like, you just buy it. If it doesn't work, send it back. Who cares?
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I understand. It's just more complicated than convenience. So with a lot of things,
Right. Yeah,
but
yeah, and to your point, you're right. It's like, I remember starting my shop and it was like getting in all the cool stuff that I liked or I was interested in or I wanted, right? So you could talk about things like that, right?
yeah.
It's a representation of the owner or the staff, or both, all of the above.
Hmm.
And, I remember having a conversation with one of my staff guys. We sold a car rack and he was just going to hand it off to her. And, I remember talking to the staff like, we something like that. We've got to assemble that for the customer. We can't just hand them a box because they could have bought in that rack anywhere, a number of places for a
Yeah.
lot less than what we could have sold it to them for. So what do we have that stands out from Amazon or whomever? It's that
Yeah.
we took the time to assemble it and show them how to use it, right? It's like that's the stuff that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and the better retailers do get that. But it is a shrinking pie. I feel
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's
Well, it's like the store, like I told you guys before, the store in my town. I went to two shops, both good shops, and the one shop was like, well, I can order that for you, because neither of them had it. I was like, well,
yep.
that's what I'm looking for. So that's my go-to shop. It's like,
Right.
and I know they may not have everything, but it's like, can you just order it for me? I just, I'm not in a rush. I want to give you the business, and
Right.
you know,
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of a weird, it's like a catch 22 because the more people buy online, the less retailers can afford to stock, right? You
Right.
can't really diversify as a retailer because you just want to get narrow with a lot of your selections because you just aren't doing enough business to justify having, three different road shoes at $300. It's going to be one road shoe at $300 and hope you like the color,
Right.
whereas, um, yeah, it just, and then the person that comes in and they're like, oh, is this all you have? It's like, oh man,
I know that
yeah,
definitely stings too. But I think there's also a responsibility of the retailer
yeah,
and how they interact with their customer because like I said, that's all you have is customer service. I mean, the parts you have or the whatever the product is you're selling is all attainable in a number of different places.
yep,
So all you have is customer service. That's what makes you stand out. That's what makes you unique. And I feel like a lot of retailers, you know, I don't know. I guess some of them just don't see it. I don't want to say they don't care. That's maybe not the right word. I know that they care, but they're not
yeah,
making the connection to the customer has to have an experience. That's what drives you back right now. And if you
that's
can't
right.
provide an experience, what do you have?
Yeah,
Not as valid.
yeah,
'Cause in your own store, you think you're the shit, and you think everything you have is the most valuable thing on the planet, and But it's now that I've been able to step out of the industry or away from that side of it, it's like it's not.
right.
Not the shit.
And the reality is, I mean, it's so close between a lot of this stuff, and you're splitting hairs about, do I like the Colnago or the Pinarello or whatever you're choosing between. It gets into this hair splitting, and a lot of times it's that connection that you may have at a shop or with a salesperson or a mechanic that
Right.
could be that's the difference,
Yeah,
and
totally.
yeah, so striving for those connections. Yeah,
And
I was good. Go ahead.
I'm seeing more too, again, now that I'm able to kind of step back, like,
Hmm.
being more understanding or accepting, which I wasn't before of this, direct to consumer or, retailers that are, retailers or bike companies that are selling to consumers. It's like, how do they reach these customers? And if the retailer is not providing the experience, where they're going to their store, then the vendor they've got to sell product too, right? So they've got to reach out as well.
Are
So
you condoning this behavior, Chris?
I just see the other side of it. I feel like it. I mean, Giants do the same thing. They're selling online.
Yeah,
And, some of them are doing it worse than others, but
right.
he reached that guy in the middle of nowhere, right? And maybe his shop doesn't carry that brand, but he really wants a Giant.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. You gotta, but at the the core of the industry, though, the thing that really supports all of the cycling are the shops in the communities, right? If
Right.
shops just were to go away, or if they were, funky little dirty, repair shops, with no all due respect,
Right.
I don't know how if that really would lift up cycling, whereas you need these really quality retailers that are turning, a good chunk of revenue so they can reinvest in the community and just drive the cycling bus, so to speak, in their markets. Because it's
Sure.
not going to be done by the bike industry. That's
Right.
for sure. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, we have this huge event coming up in the next week and a half or so, Sea Otter. And I think there's parts of the country that would love to have an event like Sea Otter. And meanwhile, here in California, a lot of dealers, you talk to them, it's like, hey, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to that. I don't care
Right.
about that. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. It's tough. It's hard to drive the cycling bus and run a business. I do think about like you were stepping away from the bike business. I had this idea the other day. See if I'm right or wrong.
All right.
So what if you had worked in to your business plan when you were just starting out to maintain writing as part of the business plan? So even if it was just 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm riding my bike.
Right.
And not, 4 hours or 6 hours, but maybe just a 2 hour Tuesday, Thursday. Do you think that that might have, because you were a slave to the trade, right? At times you were there week after week after, 7 days in a row. I forget, one time you told me it was like 40 something days in a row. Does that sound right?
I think when I first opened up, I worked like 6 months straight without a day off.
6 months
Uh,
straight, right?
uh,
So that's not really sustainable for any normal human. And the thing that brought you into the was riding your bike, right? You love riding your bike. You wanted to start your own business. And you know, I don't know. It's just so easy to make excuses. I did this most of my career. It's like
right.
I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. I literally don't have time. And uh, I don't know, but for my journey,
Mhm.
I've gotten a lot more satisfaction since I have incorporated writing into my job. And
Right.
so, I don't know. Do you ever think like you think like that? You think it
I
could
mean,
have?
I do because I think that you riding, a shop owner who is still riding their bike, on a regular basis, speaks a lot more, I think, about what you're providing to
Hmm.
the community or to your customers.
Hmm.
It's a struggle. I mean,
It's tough.
I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, that should have been the recipe. And I just don't think, I think for me, I was definitely off and on the bike more in the beginning. I was riding a lot more.
Hmm.
But I remember after 2013, I kind of got back into some racing and did some racing. And at the end of the season, I remember just stopping and looking and like, this is taking a lot of effort and I'm giving up my family. Like I'm missing my kids. Like work is already, taking up, a tremendous
Yeah.
amount of my time. And now to train and feel fulfilled on the bike, to be, whatever it is your goal is, as fast as you want to be or competitive or whatever.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm giving up my kids, and I won't ever get that back. It's like kind of one of
Right.
those in those stoicism books I was reading. It was just like, when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So you have to decide what it is you're saying yes to, like an opportunity for some work came up for me and I just had to look at it and I was like, I can't put that kind of effort into it because I'm going to be saying no to all this stuff I want to say yes to now that I had been saying no to for years.
Right.
And I didn't want to say no to that again. I owe it to some other people,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Kids does add a dynamic to the equation for sure. I
Yeah.
guess the idea that in my never had done it before, pie in the sky, you know, utopia, I kind of had like the idea that, you would still have your regular work day, but 2 hours of that day would be spent riding your bike or an hour and a half or whatever it is. And it's like you're kind of clocked in. But still, though, to your point, though, you are still, if you're going to take the time to go ride your bike, you could take that same time and go be with your kids.
Yeah.
And I know like when my kids were young, I gained a bunch of weight and because it's not my kids' fault. It was my fault.
No. Right.
I wanted to be home and I wanted to be around my kids all the time and I wasn't disciplined or enough or whatever. It wasn't a concern of mine. I all I cared about was being there for my kids when they were
Yeah.
young, right?
You were coaching and you were
Yeah,
really actively involved in your kids growing up and
yeah.
and that's, I mean, and that's great. And some people can do it better than others, right? Can balance that time and I look back at my career in the industry and I mean, I felt like we were successful, but God, I don't think I did it very well. When I look back, maybe, I mean, or I could have done it a lot better. I micromanaged more than I should have, and maybe I wasn't feeling like I could let go of the reins enough to let my staff run things. Like
Hmm.
I should have empowered them more, and that's not them, that's me.
Right,
That was just me.
right.
So,
Yeah,
but there's no one winning recipe. So I was telling AJ, there's a bunch of different ways you can do this. You just got to find a way that works for you.
right.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's not uncommon. A lot of dealers will start with this idea that they want to have shop rides and everything, and then, but the grind, retail is a grind, and it just becomes like, I don't have time. I got to do this, and
Yeah, especially with the bike, it was like it's you're thinking about it all the time. You're up in the middle of the night, blah blah blah. But it's like you're maybe you're riding your bike and you're after work, people are talking about bikes, and you go to the party on the weekend and people are like, oh, I got this bike, and you're just like, dude,
uh-huh.
I love bikes, but I just need a break,
Uh-huh.
and it's hard to say that because you genuinely do love it and you do want to share that, but
Right.
it's
Oh, yeah, there's been instances where my wife and I will be somewhere and then I run into somebody and then it's like, I just always checking in on her, she's like, and this shit again,
right.
right?
Yeah,
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 wow, bicycles are cool. You guys done now?
right. Yeah, like you're at a Safeway or shopping, and
Uh,
suddenly they're like, oh hey, by the way,
or heaven forbid you end up like out to dinner with somebody
right.
that starts down a rabbit hole and you trying to, there's times where I'm like pumping the brakes trying to get out of it, and it just doesn't work. And it's an hour and a half of chit chat about bicycle nuance. And
And
just like you, I love it. But I have I like to think that I have the social awareness
right.
of that there are also two other people at this table. It's not just me and this dude throwing out on, campy, whatever,
The sad thing is the dude who came up to you isn't aware of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's just gonna just go.
Oh, my
But
bike and this bike and that bike, and
right.
not even a bike I bought from you, and you're just like, dude.
Yeah, I gotta go. Yeah, but yeah. It's the
I,
world we chose for ourselves, though.
it's a great industry, man. I mean, like I said, I have no regrets, man. I'm so stoked with all the people I met and who've empowered me and made
Yeah,
me a better person, and there's a ton of those people. So
yeah, yeah. The industry's full of great people, and yeah, really giving people, generous people, and humble, and yeah, I love it. That's what keeps me in it all these years is the people, you
yeah,
know.
because I mean, people that are in it because they love it. It's
Yeah,
not no one's getting. I mean, very few people are getting rich. But
yeah.
it's something that you can choose to make a living at, and it's something you can be passionate about. And, I bet there's probably not as many people out there that can say that about their careers.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking when we were talking about bike dribble conversations in front of our spouses. Can you imagine how much worse it would be if we were vacuum cleaners or waste management or you know what I mean?
Right.
It could
Yeah.
be a lot worse, you know.
Right. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
No, for sure. It's
yeah,
definitely one of those great industries that we've all been blessed to be a part of. So,
yeah, no doubt. And you're still in, even though you're retired.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still here, kind of keeping my toe in a little bit here.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
The consulting thing's been pretty fulfilling, and I'm glad that I can hopefully contribute to someone's success.
Yeah. All
And
right. If someone's out there listening to the podcast and they have a business, bicycle business, and they'd like to, get involved with you and just see if you can help them, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
probably just my email, which is c Padavana at mac.com. So
All right. Beautiful. All right. Well, hey, let's wrap it up. You're at a bike shop. You probably want to get back home and wrap it up where you're at
dry
too.
flow.
Yeah. The smell of triflow and rubber. Yes. What's better than that?
Yeah, but yeah, no, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Again, I enjoy our conversations, and
Likewise.
have Dave as well. Love that guy. So
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff, man. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today, Chris. And thanks to all of you out there in podcast land. Appreciate you. That's gonna do it for this week's episode. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Cycle Jerks.